Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. 1. The only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. 2. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. 3. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so-called in saint and in so-called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward, when compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Jai Baba.
Jai.
Is everybody able to see my screen?
Uh, no, sorry, not yet. At least I can't see.
Okay, just a minute. I'm trying to share.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Using my iPad, so a little bit new for me this way. Now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I'll start reading from the second plane, the second heaven. It could take thousands of years for the pilgrim to pass through the heavens to the next plane. Under the direct guidance of his Sadguru, all seven planes and seven heavens are passed through, and the journey is speeded because the Sadguru does not allow anyone to travel on the by lanes in the heavens. But on the main lane to the next plane, after experiencing the first plane fully, the pilgrim advances and he enters the second plane. The subtle world opens like a book for him to read. The subtle world is an open book to the second plane pilgrim, and he is so immersed in his experience of this plane that he becomes fully unconscious of the gross world. It is in the second plane that the pilgrim first becomes seized by the powers of the subtle world and once seized, he gradually has to control the powers themselves by becoming the possessor of the powers. Such a yogi can now perform minor miracles. Merely by wishing, he can transform a dry and withered tree into a green and blooming one, or vice versa. Exercising only his will, he can stop a moving car or train, prevent an airplane from taking off, or fill dry wells with water. Human beings who are passing through such planes and heavens have particular physical characteristics. They are readily seen in their eyes. The eyes of second plane pilgrims are red. Some musts are jalali, meaning fiery or flaming, and are abusive. Others are jamali, meaning soothing and sweet, and are gentle. In the second plane, the eyes of the jalali are red like fire, burning red and very fierce. The eyes of the jamali appear red as if from weeping, but no tears. This red is soothing like warmth from a fire. There are 666 such second plane pilgrims as yogis or saliks, and numerous masks are between the first and second planes, and between the second and third planes in the heavens. The yogis and saliks are journeying through the heavens on one of the seven planes to the next plane, and the masks are caught up in the heavens, having taken one of the 14 bylanes. In this sense, the saliks bypass the heavens guided by a Sadguru, and the yogis strive onwards by their own efforts, knowing that they should avoid the heavens bylanes. The second heaven, Al Meruhani, contains two sections or parts, heaven and hell. These are the same heaven and hell experienced by gross conscious Jivatma after death. The pilgrim on the second subtle plane experiences the happiness of heaven by his own will, and by his own will avoids the pain of hell. The second plane pilgrim has a gross physical human body, but only directly uses his subtle body. He is in energy form and subtle consciousness and subtle sanskaras to enjoy heaven. The pilgrim would become even more absorbed in the bliss, for Ruhani is unimaginably heavenly without the intervention of Sadguru. Unless a Sadguru helps such a pilgrim, he remains in heaven, wrapped in it, because the blissful experience is so enrapturing that pilgrim himself becomes the enraptured. Al-Ruhani is called the world of enlightenment, which means subtle enlightenment, not illumination. Here, the subtle light is bursting upon the second plane, and the pilgrim merges with the subtle power bursting within his own consciousness. While passing through the rapture of second heaven, the pilgrim's subtle consciousness becomes clear. The pilgrim's sanskaras become purely subtle, and he is enlightened to use the subtle powers that seize him. The second heaven is enlightening because all opposites of heaven and hell, good and bad, pleasure and pain, are reconciled within the individual's subtle consciousness. He who becomes enlightened by enjoying the subtle world fully stands beyond heaven and hell and is beyond good and evil. The pilgrim on the second plane sees all of heaven and hell. The first plane, the ghosts in the astral, and the people in the gross world, but he can avoid the pain of hell and suffering of the world by his own will. The gross conscious human being experiences the heaven or hell of the second heaven after the death in a different way. After dying, the human has no gross body, and though he experiences the after death through the subtle body, the sanskaras that he is experiencing are gross. The gross conscious human passes through this blissful heaven only to spend his gross sanskaras, and in no way can he enjoy the happiness of the subtle heaven for its own sake. But the second plane pilgrim, being subtle conscious, enjoys al-Mehrwani totally for its own sake. Once the human being attains subtle consciousness, he does not pass through the states of heaven or hell when he dies. Can somebody explain what is for its own sake? Anyone? I'll read again. The gross conscious human passes through this blissful heaven only to spend his gross sanskaras, and in no way can he enjoy the happiness of this subtle heaven for its own sake. But the second plane pilgrim, being subtle conscious, enjoys al-Mehrwani totally for its own sake. Once a human being attains subtle consciousness, he does not pass through the states of heaven or hell when he dies. Never mind, I'll keep reading. Let's see.
Rick?
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So my understanding is that we know that when a human being who is living in the gross plane of existence, after they drop their body, they will experience the heaven and hell state in the semi-subtle world, or also called the astral world. So there is a link between the gross and the subtle world, which is the semi-subtle or astral. The astral body is used there. But once the pilgrim or the aspirant has transcended the gross sanskaras to subtle sanskaras, he is basically starting from the first plane of involution, is in subtle, he has subtle consciousness. And so when this aspirant who is in the planes, let's say between 1 and 4, they are not going to experience the heaven and hell state, number one, because the gross samskaras are not there. So in one way, this particular paragraph helps us to understand that heaven and hell state is only for those aspirants or who are still in the gross plane of existence, have gross samskaras. Because to be in the plane of involutions, all gross samskaras has to be transmuted into subtle samskaras. So the pilgrim who is on the subtle planes will will no more have anything to do with the astral world or with the astral body. I think this is also mentioned in the supplement of God Speaks in the last page, actually, where Baba talks about the astral world. So I think somebody could read that after this, after what you read, that will help us to understand it better between the gross sanskaras and the subtle sanskaras. People who experience this. So, so I think that's what it means, that there is a different kind of experience for the person in the subtle world. Jai Baba.
Subtle world. Jai Baba. Thank you, Kama. I'll continue reading. If somebody can pull up the God Speaks, that page would be helpful. Anyway, I continue reading. It's difficult for me to navigate. I'm not very used to the iPad. So
can you tell me the page, Kama? I have the God Speaks with me. Hello.
It's the last page, last supplement. You would see that in the glossary, in the supplement. Yeah.
So let me continue. Meanwhile, Ashokji, you keep trying. Yeah.
I have opened it. The World of the Astral, supplement number 37.
Mamaji, the page, please.
Page is 275.
Okay.
Should I read it now?
Yes, please go ahead.
The world of the astral. There is no astral world as such. The astral world is not a portion of the subtle world. However, in between the gross and the subtle worlds, there are 7 sheets which form the so-called world of the astral, and this serves as a link between these two worlds. The gross conscious soul may be said to have an astral body which links the gross with the subtle. The astral may be called the imprint of the subtle over the gross, which uh, which imprint is neither gross nor subtle. In sleep, in the ordinary dream state, one experiences the impressions of the gross world with the subtle body subconsciously and not with the astral body. All experiences in the world of the astral experienced through the medium of the astral body are as insignificant as dreams. After disembodiment, the soul experiences the world of the astral in the astral body. This may be said to be the astral journey of the soul. When the soul gets embodied, the astral body is shed, and with the new gross body, it gets a fresh astral body. But as long as it does not get embodied, its subtle and mental bodies undergo the experiences of the states of heaven or hell through the medium of the astral body, in accordance with the impressions that were accumulated while it was in an embodied state. The spiritual path begins only with the involution of the consciousness when the soul begins to experience the first plane of the subtle world, not when it just has access to the astral phenomena from the gross world. At this stage, when the soul experiences fully the first plane of the subtle world, the astral sheath that linked the subtle with the gross is snapped for good. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Sunilji, I have a question. Maybe it's a matter of understanding. You read somewhere that when you come in the subtle plane, the heaven or hell state is not experienced. But here they are saying that, I read, when the soul gets embodied, the astral body is shed with the new gross body, it gets a fresh astral body. But as long as it does not get embodied, its subtle and mental bodies undergo the experience of the state of heaven or hell through the medium of the astral body, in accordance with the impressions that were accumulated while it was in an embodied state. But I think you read somewhere that in a subtle plane, the experiences of heaven and hell are not there, or one doesn't. It's a little.
No, the last line shows the difference in that nectar. If you read that, it is snapping of that contact.
Okay. See, it says once. I come to that page above. Once again.
Bhau.
Once a human being attains subtle consciousness, he does not pass through the states of heaven or hell when he dies.
Huh.
Yes, Jay Baba, it's the same thing. Clearly says that when you are when you are subtle conscious, what does it mean? See, there is a understanding between being gross conscious, subtle conscious, mental conscious. Then you have gross consciousness, subtle consciousness, and mental consciousness. And there is gross sanskaras, subtle sanskaras, and mental sanskaras. So clearly, in both the appendix as well as in this part that Sunil is reading, heaven and hell state is only experienced by gross conscious souls after they drop their body. That the heaven and hell state are experienced in the so-called astral world with the use of the astral body. But once the soul transmutes its gross sanskaras to subtle sanskaras, it becomes a subtle conscious soul, which is now on the planes. So in that respect, after the subtle conscious soul drops its embodied body, it will not have anything to do with the astral body, astral world, or anything like that. So so heaven and hell state is only for gross conscious souls after they drop their body. Jai Baba.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Baba, can I go ahead
Please,
reading? Ashokji is okay?
please
Yes.
go ahead. Thank you.
Jai Baba. The pilgrim of the second plane sees heaven and hell, but because his consciousness is clear, he is absorbed in the enjoyment of the happiness of heaven. The pilgrim enjoys the heaven of al-Meruhani while incarnate and experience thousands of times more intense than an ordinary gross conscious man can imagine. The hell of second heaven is not experienced by the pilgrim. The hell of al-Meruhani is real hell, with the two parts or sections, higher and lower hell. Hell is for the beneficial experience of gross conscious people to spend their excess bad and unnatural impressions collected. Ordinary bad and unnatural sanskaras such as lying, stealing, promiscuity, gluttony, greed, jealousy, etc., are spent in the higher hell state of consciousness. People who have committed such terribly binding gross actions in their past life, such as suicide, murder, genocide, spiritual hypocrisy, false gurus, and false saints, enter the lower hell where the deepest and darkest stains of ignorance can be spent consciously. The most unnatural act of suicide results in the worst after death experience. Suicide severely checks the natural progress of human consciousness and should be avoided. The human jivatma who commits suicide remains suspended in the subsubtle or astral world for centuries as a ghost, because he himself cut short millions of gross sanskaras which were meant to be spent in his last life. The suicide without a gross body of his own must gradually spend each and every one of his leftover sanskaras as a ghost through temporary possession of other gross human or animal bodies. This process of possessing other bodies takes a very long time, several centuries, as a ghost has to find a suitable medium for each set of gross impressions such as smoking, drinking, fornicating, eating, etc. Suicide is a cause of many unnatural sanskaras, and the purpose of the human body is quite distorted during extreme unnatural acts of possession. Once the purpose of human body is distorted, the human consciousness becomes distorted. There is no such phenomena as demonic possession, and demonic entities do not exist. Such entities are ghosts of suicides. There are good and bad ghosts, just as there are good and bad, high and low, natural and unnatural degrees of human consciousness. It is because of centuries of possessing others' bodies to use up sanskaras that some ghosts are frightening. Actually, their human consciousness has become distorted, and that distortion of consciousness is frightening. It is one part of the work of the avatar and sadgurus to help ghosts of suicides to use up their sanskaras quickly and thereby obtain for them a sufficient balancing of gross sanskaras to precipitate another human birth. The two states of consciousness, called heaven and hell, are temporal states of mind for the mind bound in grossness and are experienced subtly in gross time spans. These states are necessary to review consciously one's most recent past life through the new, good or bad sanskaras collected from one's gross actions. The states of heaven and hell in Al-Meruhani are a great relief for gross conscious human beings after death, as the good and bad impressions accumulated are mostly consumed in either state thereby balancing the individual's consciousness. If this relief from one's good or bad sanskaras were not existent, it would be impossible for any human to progress towards involution, as it would take so long to spend the gross sanskaras embodied. Once relief is experienced, the person can distinguish in this state good from bad or natural from unnatural. The consumption of good and bad sanskaras balances the consciousness. If the opposite impressions balance while in human form, one becomes God realized, while if they nearly balance the disembodied in the heaven or hell, one simply takes another birth. If a gross conscious person enjoys the heaven state after death through the medium of his subtle body, and if he has to spend the gross sanskaras of enjoying the intoxication of liquor, just a thought of liquor gives him thousands of times more enjoyment than the enjoyment of drinking liquor in the body. The reverse is true in the hell state, when just a thought of pain can cause thousands of times more anguish than actual physical suffering. In this way, gross conscious people can quickly spend their good and bad sanskaras with heightened intensity and thereby distinguish good actions done while incarnate from bad. Any questions about the second plane? Can move to the third plane then. The third plane, the third heaven. After perhaps thousands of years and different lifetimes, when the natural development of
Before you start the third one,
right,
one thought on the second plane. So the intense feeling of either pain or suffering, pain or pleasure in the second plane seems to indicate that suffering or enjoyment to spend the samskara is a necessary thing in life. So that's why Baba always tells that suffering, if you are going through suffering, you are spending your samskaras. Don't bother. You be happy to suffer. Probably that is the message here. Jai Baba.
Baba.
Jay Baba, it's a good point by Doc Mama because, as Baba said, I'm not the body, which also percolates to our uh, looking at our own body, where we are attached to our gross body, subtle body, and mental body, depending on whether you are a sportsman or a musician or a scientist, whatever. And as rightly said, because good and bad sanskaras lead to pleasure and pain, respectively. So sanskaras have to be dissolved. And Baba said that suffering is a benediction because it helps us to move forward. Because when you're having pleasure, then you don't think about the realized self, because the pleasure and pain is happening to the ego personality self, which is related with a material body. But this material body is only a medium for our consciousness to dissolve sanskaras and unite with the super consciousness, because the super consciousness is already latent. So hence, uh, sanskaras play a very important role in terms of, with the right understanding, of course, that whether somebody is going through pain or pleasure, whether with oneself or with the near and dear ones, one can use this postulate to understand why this is happening. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So I continue the third plane, the third heaven. And perhaps thousands of years and different lifetimes, with the natural development of subtle consciousness, the pilgrim enters the third plane. Here, the pilgrim comes into control of more occult powers because he becomes aware of the entire subtle realm and its nature, pure energy, power. Consequently, the third plane pilgrim can perform major miracles, such as giving sight to the blind, making the crippled walk, bestowing speech to the mute or hearing to the deaf, and giving life again to death. He also has powers to become invisible and appear in different places of the world. The subtle sight of third plane consciousness is tremendously expansive. To see such, to see here means to read, and he can read the minds of everyone at any distance, in any place in the world. The first plane pilgrim can see any part of gross world, while the second plane pilgrim can see any part of gross world, and the first and second planes without different heavens. But the third plane pilgrim's sight is so expansive and inclusive that he can see the entire gross universe and the first, second, and third planes and their heavens. However, he cannot see the fourth plane and its heavens. As he sees from the plane, he sees through the three heavens as if all is in front of him. He can thereby read the minds of all gross and subtle beings. Since the inner eye of the pilgrim's subtle body is completely open at this stage, he uses the subtle side and uses the light of third plane to see the gross and subtle forms of others. With this subtle sight, he lights up the gross bodies of others and their subtle forms, and thereby knows their inner minds of one and all beneath him. The human being in the third plane has a physical characteristic. The eyes of such pilgrim always appear to be swollen. The third heaven, Kudasi, the pure world, is divided into three sections or parts. The first section is the state of Indra, in Sanskrit Indralok, the abode of rain god to Hindus, and in Persian Makanehuri, the house of the fairies. The second section is the abode of angels, or the abode of gods, in Sanskrit Devloka. The Greek and Roman gods were these angels or devas, and they are the Hindu gods. The second section is the actual section of Mekudasi, where pilgrim experiences the subtle knowledge. This knowledge is not gnosis, but occult or mystic knowledge. Each section in the third heaven holds millions of times more bliss, more happiness, more powers than the second heaven. The state of subtle consciousness is known as Indra, is the state of the first section of the third heaven. Indra is known as the king of the gods or the king of angels, the same as Greek Zeus or Roman Jupiter. In Persian, Indra's abode is Makanehuri, the house of fairies or the house of beautiful women. Indra's fairies are feminine, subtle beings, a type of an angel without exceptional beauty and charm, with exceptional beauty and charm. This state of Indra is referred to as post of divinity, a station of considerable power and certain duties concerning to the elements of nature, specifically to do with earth. If a man successfully performs a severe penance such as Chila Nashini, stay inside a circle for 40 days and nights, when he drops his physical body, dies, this man attains Indra state. This means that a gross conscious man becomes Indra and gains subtle identity with the status king, in brackets, the powers, the duties of that post, thrown in brackets, He has become the king of gods, Zeus or Jupiter within brackets, who rules 330 million angels, 330, and there are 6 zeros. Being king of the angels is an experience of Al-Mekodasi, which is millions of times more blissful than any experience in the second heaven of Al-Meruhani. Through his subtle body, he consciously experiences the bliss of being deified and holds holds that post while in a disembodied state. One such epoch, which equals 4 cycles, each cycle is about 26,000 years. This human holds the post of Indra and is very possessive of it. Many times those men, ascetics in brackets, in the gross world who are striving to attain the post of Indra will have their penance disturbed by the individuals currently holding the throne. The suffering penitents are actually disturbed by Indra himself, who sends all kings of temptations their way, from the most beautiful to the most seductive, to defeat the penance and have it stopped. Those who fail to dethrone Indra and are overcome by their own fear during the penance. Indra will do anything to keep his throne, but despite efforts to stay in power, the individual holding the Indra post must leave it after one epoch and again take a human body on earth. That individual who was Indra progresses higher while incarnate, still retaining his third plane subtle consciousness. It is important to understand that this individual titled Indra exists in his subtle body and inhabits the heavens while disembodied, but cannot progress in subtle consciousness until he incarnates again. In other words, Zeus must come down from Olympus, Jupiter must abandon the abode of gods and become a man again to advance towards the fourth plane. There are 558 human beings in the third plane as Saliks, and even more musts are absorbed in the heavens between third and fourth planes, but only one holds the post of Indra. The angels are ancient gods of mythology. Indra controls the angels and assigns duties to them, making certain that each angel fulfills its duty in a proper way for the balance of nature and creation. Angels inhabit the second section of third heaven, Devaloka. Angels are the devas who have only subtle form and no gross body. A pilgrim with third plane consciousness can see these angels as a normal man can see gross creatures. Angels do not pass through evolution in the gross world. Angels are those drop bubbles who remain stationary in the subtle world during the first 6 stages of movement of the ocean of nothing and never reach the 7th stage, the gross world. When the drop bubbles first entered creation through the mental planes, unconsciously, within brackets, some became archangels, within brackets, that exist in the 6th heaven. Those who became angels continued to pass through the mental planes but attained consciousness when they entered the third plane's 2nd heaven, the angelic abode Devaloka, or the 1st heaven, Makanehuri, and become fairies. Though completely happy and enjoying bliss to the fullest, the automatons of the will of Indra, angels will aspire to attain human form because only in the human form can a soul become God realized. God realization is the divine goal of all life, not angelic existence or being God among gods. So the angels and the archangels must attain a human form as also Indra must leave his throne and give up his reign to progress further towards godhood. After an angel has exited the Devloka for 4 cycles, the angel has the opportunity of being born in human form, and only one birth and lifetime as a human being that archangel or angel receives liberation from all future births and deaths. Mukti, the state of infinite bliss realized. The universe, though huge and immeasurably vast and countless variety, is a closed system, and a balance of nature must be maintained within this universal container, universal body within brackets. The universal container holds all light, all heat, all sound, all water, all the elements contained in nature, and the natural forces, energies in brackets, generated in the universe. It is the work of angels and fairies, various types of genii or sylphs, etc., under the direction of Indra to keep light, heat, sound, water, and the elements of forces in nature in equilibrium. Without the angels and fairies, there would be frequent colossal disturbance in the universe, and a result of imbalance of these elements and energies for the human mind plays havoc with the natural forces through scientific exploitation. This is quite interesting. So there are angels and fairies keeping the balances in the universe, elements of nature in equilibrium. It is only after many years that the natural forces go out of control during such eruption in the universe, resulting in chaos in the world, earthquakes, floods, famines, etc. Not even the angels and fairies nor Indra can control the cosmic consequences.
Sunilji, I just wanted to add. Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to add here that all this present chaos and the climate change and
Mhm.
global warming, etc., is perhaps it relates to that as well. And it says that
Yes.
not even the angels and fairies nor Indra can control the cosmic consequences.
So, on a lighter note, either angels and fairies are not doing their work to cause all the all the disturbance that's happening here, or it is what cosmic
No, I think
consequence.
they're doing a balancing
Really?
part of
Okay.
it. I don't think they will ever create unnecessary suffering for us, right?
Yeah, of course.
No,
Okay.
there is one sentence here which refers to the cross-bodied soul doing scientific exploitation. So we
Yeah,
are the cause for some of the havocs that is
suffering.
happening here. Yes. Yes.
Perhaps you can read this sentence without the angels and fairies.
Hmm. Uh, yeah, without the angels and fairies, there would be frequent colossal disturbances in the universe as a result of the imbalance of these elements and energies, for the human mind plays havoc with natural forces through scientific
Exploitation.
exploitation.
Yes.
Yeah, very
So the
interesting.
ozone layer, we disturbed the ozone layer. So we are
Right.
facing the consequences. That is one aspect which comes to my mind.
Yes,
And
yes, Mama. So this is a warning for all of us.
Yes, yes.
it is only after many years that the natural forces go out of control. During such eruption in the universe, resulting as a chaos in the world, earthquakes, floods, famines, etc., Not even the angels of fairies nor Indra can control cosmic consequences. What are cosmic consequences? Anybody has better insights? Or is there more later? Yeah.
Disturbances beyond the earth itself. It can be in the whole of cosmos, stars dissolving or bursting, black holes devouring so many things. All these things are the cosmic consequences, probably.
No, answer is given here in the first
Yeah.
sentence. This the cosmic consequences
Yes.
are universal disharmony caused by human extravaganza and excessiveness.
Yes, the answer is
Yeah.
here. So let me continue reading. We get more insights. These cosmic consequences are universal disharmony caused by human extravagance and excessiveness. Then the Ancient One himself must come into creation and work to restore equilibrium in the universe. Indra has control of all the 330 million gods or angels. Each angel performs a different function under Indra's reign. Some control winds, temperature, the seas, or evolving farms, and some fairies are connected with metals, vegetation, worms, insects, fish, birds, or animals. The 330 million angels in Devaloka perform specific functions for the maintenance or preservation of the universe accordingly to the specific duty assigned them by Indra. Each angel is called the god of this power or that power. It is said Neptune rules the seas.
It's very interesting. It's like a corporation, right?
Yeah, it's like a
And
corporation. There are
it's a
maintenance people, 330 maintenance
exact
people.
specific number is given here.
Right.
No, this also brings into the sort of say awareness of us who have read so much about Hindu way of thinking. So we have so many grahas and other things which are ruling each different function. So this is almost similar to that. So each angel or a official handles a particular portfolio and then looks after that in this
Yeah.
whole cosmic play of things.
Right. The mental world descends directly from Tej, original fire, and the subtle world descends from the mental. The subtle world is of water, 276 states of gas within brackets, and therefore Indra is known as the god of rain, as the subtle water pours in the world, raindrops. The rain of the gross world is the shadow of the water in 276 states of gas combined in the subtle. When pure mental fire and pure subtle water combine, a subtle gaseous combustion results, lightning flashes. Hence, Indra's powers manifest in the gross world as electrical, what the Greeks called Zeus' thunderbolt. Indra and angels do not advance through the third subtle plane, but neither have gross bodies, and one needs a gross body to advance. Indra and his angels remain stationary in the first and second sections of Al-Mekudasi, namely Makanehuri and Devloka. However, the third plane pilgrims advancing through the third section of Al-Mekudasi has a physical human body as well as a subtle and mental body, and so he can advance. Al-Mekudasi is the pure world where the subtle consciousness is fully developed and subtle energy, occult power within brackets, is not misused. The third section is the real part of inner knowledge. The inner knowledge may be called subtle knowledge, as in this pure world, the pilgrim knows the subtle world fully. The pilgrim of the third plane enjoys the third heaven completely. He is blissfully in full command of the subtle energy, being beyond Indra and Devas. He is above a godlike nature as well as an angelic nature. Subtle knowledge pertains to all occult and mystic arts, and one stationed in the third plane knows all these arts, kalas. He uses inner knowledge to devote himself to the highest art. He is called occult artist. The art deals with the utilization of prana, the 276 subtle gases. The pilgrim of the first plane reads the gross minds of those near him physically, but the second plane pilgrim reads the minds of people at any distance, as they do not necessarily have to be in his physical proximity for him to know what they are thinking or doing. The third plane pilgrim can read the minds of all people on the gross level, and subtle conscious pilgrims of the first and second planes, whether they are physically near or on the other side of the world. He reads their minds that he may help them in some way. If they are in danger of an accident, he can prevent it. Or in case of illness, he may cure them by merely wishing it. The wishing is the release of prana, the breath of life. He breathes on them or into them. But to restore limbs, give sight to the blind, give speech to the dumb, or hearing to the deaf, people need to be in his physical presence. The second and third planes are the main planes of the subtle world because the astral sections of the first plane is connected to the gross. In the second and third planes, the pilgrim is so completely disconnected from the gross that he does not relate to the normal people and gross material things except as shadows. It takes many lifetimes, usually hundreds and thousands of years, for the pilgrim to traverse all 7 inner planes and heavens, within brackets, though he could do so in one great leap if a Sadguru wished it and personally guided him. The lifetimes journeying the planes are not exactly reincarnations but termed as shakings because the sanskaras are unwinding instead of winding during the gross sanskaric exchange. When a pilgrim on the subtle or mental planes drops the physical body, within bracket dies, that he put on, within bracket, as an ordinary human being would put on clothes, he does not go through the experience of heaven or hell. The subtle and mental sanskaras he collects along the path in the subtle and mental worlds are altogether different from the gross sanskaras collected by the human in the world.
Sunilji, I think
Yeah.
the above paragraph, I think it's very important.
Yes.
These people in the involution, even though they are not collecting, they spend thousands of years because they get stuck in the heavens. They go to, I mean, people who are in different planes, just like us, you know. Why does somebody doesn't go in a spiritual growth? Because he's stuck with worldly enjoyments.
Right.
That's how he's stuck, goes in the lateral movement. There may be some improvement in each life, but very, very little because his focus is on different things. So just like us, these people in the involution ladder, they also get stuck in the heavens, and it is with the help of the perfect master that they move on. So that is why Baba, you know, always suggests us to hold on to my Daman, love me, hold on to my Daman. That will certainly help us to move faster in our lanes. I'm just comparing with ourselves with those people.
Yes.
So
yes,
everybody is in
yes.
evolution, whether we are in gross world or subtle or heaven or hell, right? Did I get that correct?
Involution is only starting from the first plane. People who
First plane.
started the first plane. We are in the reincarnation. Well, I can only
We are
speak
in the
for myself.
reincarnation.
We are in the reincarnation
So
period.
I see. Okay, I thought somewhere on that graph, the moment you turn, the evolution begins in the human form. No, not yet.
Uh, the people in the first plane, that is what,
Mhm.
when they start entering into the first plane, that is when the involution period starts. The first journey. Baba talked
I
about
see.
4 journeys, right? The first journey
Right.
starts from the first plane to the
I
God
see.
realization plane. Yeah.
No, one point here. So many of us are in the reincarnation process, but a very few choice people uh, amongst us are in the world as of today. They are in different planes. We may not be able to identify them.
Yes.
So they will be
Mhm.
progressing in different planes,
Mm.
and maybe how to identify them is difficult. But as they progress, they come to the master level, Sadguru level, and all that. So
Mm.
because they are also embodied people, just like
Right.
any other cross human being.
I was
See,
also
even see
intrigued by.
Baba, yeah. See, Baba explained
Sorry.
this for our understanding. And I don't know if you go to a particular person, let's say Baba said he's in the 4th plane, and if you go and ask him, hey, which plane are you in? He may not be able to answer. That's what I have a feeling. It's the Baba categorizing all these planes for us to understand, I think. That's what I
Yes,
think.
yes.
I also feel so.
Mhm.
I don't know whether it's really like a corporate structure, 330 million people working or something. Maybe these numbers and planes and levels are all for us to understand the
Mm.
journey. It may actually be a little bit more fuzzy than Baba has tried to put it here. And
Jai
what
Baba,
was also, yeah,
yeah, I
Baba.
think that just like we have physical constants in the material world, in the laws of matter, there are about 20 physical constants. I was reading about absolute zero, Kelvin, temperature, and all that. Similarly, we have what we call as spiritual constants, such as the number 56 God realized souls, 7,000 in the spiritual hierarchy, which is there in the supplement, where Baba has given the categorization of how many people are in different planes. And the one question I have is, in the 7,000 spiritual hierarchy, does it mean that these are the people who are actively involved in their duties in the world, or there are other people who are also in the planes but are passive? So that is something I've been, kind of pondering on, whether the number 7,000 in the spiritual hierarchy are the only people who are on the planes at a time in the, in the universe, or there are more people than that. Jai Baba.
Kama, I was having the same question because if you look at the hierarchy 7,000, there are a lot of mazoops in each station, right? But Baba said mazoops don't have any responsibility at the same time. They don't do any duty. So that's what confuses me. And that's one thing. The second thing is Baba's agents are there, various agents that Baba said they all do avataric work. They're all in the different planes. Some may be 5th plane, 6th plane, maybe 4th plane. Those things Baba have explained. If I remember right, Baba goes to a park and a small park-like thing, and there is a walkway, like a 4-way walkway, and there's one person walking on the other side, and Baba walks in the opposite side, and then then Baba told the Mandali that he is an agent, that he made a contact. And if I remember right, maybe I'm wrong, but probably he is in so-and-so plane. There's one more incident in Switzerland. They take a boat, and there's one worker with all the boots and helmet and all that stuff comes and sits in the boat opposite to Baba. And then for about half an hour or so, they just sat. And then when the boat stopped somewhere, the gentleman gets up and walks. And before getting down the boat, he looks at Baba and puts like a thankful face or something like that. After he left, Baba said he's in the fifth plane. He's my worker agent, and he's something like taking care of some Switzerland. He has got he's worker, ordinary worker, and he has got wife and kids too. That the kids and wife don't even know that he's in fifth plane and doing my work. Those are very interesting. It's hard to gauge and understand all those details. But what are we going to do with that? We are just curious. All these numbers Baba giving out, 330 million angels. What are we going to do with that information? Except, oh, okay. Jai Baba.
Jay Baba, I think in the what Sunil read, there are some subtle hints. People have a physical characteristic, like in the third plane, they have swollen eyes. So, I mean, there are some attributes which are subtle hints in the passages which Sunil read.
Yeah, my
Jai
question
Baba,
is.
on a humorous note, it's almost like the Game of Thrones. Within this divine dream of God, there are different worlds with different laws. We are talking about Indra Lok and all those things. And I believe that in Islam, when they say that you sacrifice yourself for your religion, you will attain the heaven and all that stuff. I think that is probably related to this Indra Lok and so on. And so, in a way, because this is within the divine dream of God, if we look at this whole divine theme, God speaks from a top-down approach. It's like a Russian doll or an onion being peeled, and in the end, there is nothingness. So, within this waking state dream, because we know that in the sleeping state, things happen very spontaneously. But the waking state of 16 hours, when the human being is in human form, that is where all these games are played. Most people are in the gross plane, and some people who are in the 7,000 spiritual hierarchy are in different planes playing different games. But in the end, the only thing that matters is liberation. So it is almost going from 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270 to 360 degrees, where you're discovering yourself. So in a way, to me, it almost seems like a computer game or a kind of a play where you're involved with all these things in your waking state dream. Jai Baba.
Yes.
Jai Baba. It's an interesting game and he wants us to play it, so
Either you want to play the game till the end or just get out after Mukti. That is your choice.
yep.
Exactly, Mamaji, because it says that you can get enchanted on the planes, especially up to the first, second, third, and there are a lot of enchantments and a lot of distractions. So you have to keep your mind focused on your goal, your path. There are multiple references in this book.
Yeah,
Jai
there are fairies waiting for you, Ashokji, to enchant you. It's like a game, right? It's a bit funny that God's world is like this. Create fairies to distract you, then you have to work harder to go somewhere.
You have to keep your mind on your goal, just like Krishna did His focus on the eye of the fish.
That was Krishna or that was Arjun?
Sorry, Arjun.
Arjun.
I stand corrected.
Okay, let's keep going. Keep our focus on reading. When a pilgrim on the subtle or mental planes drops the physical body, that means dies, that
Sunil,
he
the
has.
book is not visible.
Oh, hold on, please. I think the
Sharing.
sharing has disappeared. Share again. It should come back now. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm reading from here. When the pilgrim on the subtle or mental planes drops the physical body, within bracket dies, that he has put on, within brackets, as an ordinary human would put on clothes, he does not go through the experience of heaven and hell. The subtle and mental sanskaras he collects along the path in the subtle and mental worlds are altogether different from the gross sanskaras collected by the human in the world. The sanskaras of the path do not need to be spent by experience of their opposites. They drop away as the pilgrim progresses to a higher stage. When a pilgrim enters the next higher plane, the sanskaras accumulated simply drop off or are shaken off. If there is no experience of the opposites, as the sanskaras do not hold, then there is no experience of heaven or hell. Consequently, when a pilgrim on the plane dies, he voluntarily takes another form. It is in accordance with the Sadguru's wish, or can remain in the plane or heaven for some period of time without one. After the third plane pilgrim passes through the Al-Mekudasi, he is able to advance towards the fourth plane of all power and all powers and enter the full splendor of the threshold of the beloved that lies between subtle and mental worlds. It is now the pilgrim experiences the greatest enchantment of becoming all powerful himself, divine in power. He becomes the greatest of yogis. Is this where the risk of coming down to the stone stage exists?
Yes.
Perhaps
Yes.
we'll read more. The fourth plane, the fourth heaven. After achieving gross form, the Jivatma cannot fall back in evolutionary consciousness to a lower state of consciousness. No one loses consciousness once gained through evolution. So a human being cannot revert to an animal form, though he may temporarily possess animal forms if he is a ghost or as a tantric sorcerer may transform into an animal. However, an exception is the human jivatmas on fourth plane. He can fall all the way back to stone consciousness, but he is ruined only if he misuses the tremendous powers. The powers of the fourth plane are divine, infinite in nature, and all occult powers, siddhis, manifest from the fourth plane. Yogis call these divine powers as Riddhi Siddhi, the power of Kundalini, the serpent's power, the same cobra that hangs coiled around Shiva's neck. The fourth plane and the four heavens actually lie in between the subtle and mental worlds. The pilgrim on this plane is always in danger of falling, and he is situated between the subtle world of energy, power, and the mental world of mind, thoughts, feelings, desires. The fourth plane pilgrim is actually standing between the subtle and mental worlds, with one foot in each, in touch with both spheres, and the footing is treacherous. The pilgrim at this dangerous stage has half subtle and half mental sanskaras, that is, he is conscious of being caught between the worlds, of being split half energy and half mind. The fourth plane pilgrim under the nazar, the watchful eye of a Sadguru, is safe and will not fall, though the footing is still treacherous. Such a pilgrim in Sanskrit is called a Mahayogi, a great yogi, and he is master of boundless powers. The Mahayogi has the power to do anything but has no divine knowledge, Gyan. Gyan or Dhyan, D-N-Y-A-N, to control the powers he holds. He is so near to the fifth plane of mental world, but he is unable to control his mind, thoughts, feelings, desires, emotions. As the Sadguru guides the pilgrim through the fourth plane of infinite power, the all-powerful yogi is checked, and only very rarely does one misuse his powers and fall to stone, but it has and does happen. Anybody knows an example of somebody falling to the stone state?
Some people say Ahalya, but I'm not sure
Ahilya was
because
cursed. She was cursed, right?
she was cursed.
It came to my mind just now, but I thought she was cursed.
Yeah, some people refer that, but I'm not sure.
Which
And
one?
Rama brought her back
Ahalya,
to.
Ahalya, when
Ah,
Rama
ah, ah.
is in stone form, and Rama puts her foot on the stone, she comes
Yes.
alive. I don't know if there's an
I,
example of Baba, but Baba
I,
never mentioned. I don't know if Baba mentioned that.
I thought somewhere I read she was cursed by some saint to become a stone. So, well, I don't know. Maybe the curse was a part of something. I don't know.
Curse, probably curse makes, yeah. But what is written is that always when the fourth plane must is trying to misuse the powers, the other fifth plane or sixth plane or perfect master, they snatch away his powers.
I
So
see.
that, yeah, to avoid that. But I don't remember to Baba ever mention about example of so and so character.
Okay, let's continue.
Jai Baba, I think when you read the Wikipedia on Ahalya, she was basically seduced by Indra and cursed by her husband for infidelity and liberated from the curse by Rama, the seventh avatar of God Vishnu.
Right.
So it's Ahalya is cursed. Although early texts describe how Ahalya must atone by undergoing severe penance while remaining invisible to the world, and how she is purified by offering Rama hospitality. In the popular retelling developed over time, Ahalya is cursed to become a stone and regains her human form after she is brushed by Rama's foot.
So, interesting.
He's the wife of Gautami Maharishi, right?
Right.
Yes.
Let me continue. It is the Jalali masters who knock down the yogis to stone, whereas the Jamali masters check or take away the powers. The power of the fourth plane is so great that any misuse of it has terrible consequences. It is the reaction to the misuse itself that is powerful enough to send the great yogi back to stone consciousness. He who felt himself to be so great, so infinitely powerful, now lies on the floor and thinks himself to be just a stone. He lies in the ruin. He who thought so intensely with the peak of all emotions can now think almost nil. This fall is almost always prevented by Sadguru's guidance, but if the great yogi refuses to be guided through the fourth planes, four heavens, then the misuse of the infinite power could occur. Very few yogis can cross the fourth plane threshold and enter the mental world on their own effort, but a few do. The pilgrim of the fourth plane in Sanskrit is named Kuber, the possessor of all wealth. Kuber is the possessor of everything. He owns everything but divine knowledge and divine bliss.
Isn't it Kuber, brother of Ravana?
I don't know. Sorry.
I think, yeah, I think so.
But Kuber is treasure. In Hindi, Kuber ka khazana, people say, or in the mystical books. So I don't know if he was Ravana's brother. Anyway, I'll continue. The pilgrim of the fourth plane in Sanskrit is named Kuber, the possessor of all wealth. Kuber is the possessor of everything. He owns everything but divine knowledge and divine bliss. His bliss is not infinite, but it is the full splendor of Surya Loka, and his splendor is his infinite powers. It is said in India that Kuber's house is always full, meaning his palace is full of all riches. There are always 56 such Kubers on earth at all times. They are the masters of power in spiritual hierarchy. So there are 56 Kubers on earth all times. We need to find just one.
So is this the same as the 56 number mentioned by Baba in his circle?
खजाना है अशोक जी वहां पे. मैं कह रहा था एक भी मिल जाए तो हमारा तो
हाँ,
काम हो जाएगा.
इनफैक्ट ये पूरे ग्रुप को भी अगर एक मिले तो बहुत है.
On the fourth plane, Kuber has 7 great powers, Riddhi Siddhi, and a countless number of lesser powers, Siddhis. The first great power is that Kuber can raise the dead, both human and animal. The second great power is that Kuber can create other worlds, in brackets, all universes, all beings, and paraphernalia in them. And the third power is that he can destroy other worlds. The fourth and fifth great powers of Kuber are that not only can he read all gross conscious minds and minds of the pilgrims of the first, second, and third subtle planes, but Kuber can also influence them all. The sixth great power is that Kuber can even influence the mind of Indra and angels. And with the seventh great power, Kuber can control Indra and the angels and direct them according to his wish. The gods and their king bow to Kuber's power. Kuber achieves infinite power and infinite powers. Though of these powers are 7 major powers, as likewise Maya has 7 major powers containing 7 major desires. So Kuber, who feels full impact of emotion and desire, thus feels all lust, all anger, all greed, all hatred, all pride, all selfishness, and all jealousy. Because the Kuber holds all the power contained within the 7 major desires, but he has not the mental capacity to control his mind, to control what he desires, this is extremely dangerous. This is interesting, and this is something that helps us understand why the place is very treacherous. Because Kuber holds all the power contained within the 7 major desires, but has not the mental capacity to control his mind, to control what he desires, this is extremely dangerous. Kuber must be watched by a Sadguru or fifth plane pilgrim, or he will surely act on his desire, since he is filled with every desire. It is his mind, his thought, that is checked by Sadguru from thinking about fulfilling his desires. If Kuber thinks about fulfilling any desire, it is done. If he was to think about creating or destroying the world, it would begin instantaneously. His mind must be checked. Kuber's situation is extremely dangerous because he feels the full intensity of desire and emotion. If one feels all lust, one would create a new world. If one feels all anger, one would destroy the world. If one feels all greed, one would own all in the world. If one feels all hatred, one would wreck the world. If one feels pride, all pride, one would control the world. If one feels all selfishness, one would keep all in the world. If one feels all jealousy, one would take away all in the world. So I see in this lust, anger, greed, hatred, pride, selfishness, jealousy. अशोक जी आप याद कर रहे थे 7 sins.
LAG lag and HPSJ.
Yep. Acronym बना दिया आपने भी.
And
तामा की तरह.
it's easier to remember.
Yep.
Lag is something which draws you down, LAG, and then HPSJ. Anyway.
Yes. Because Kuber has infinite power, he can do anything. Nothing is impossible for him, and no one is more powerful. At times, Kuber drains heaven and hell and makes the soul of the dead enter another dead human bodies. It is such fourth planar who creates minor chaos to the world by directing suicides to possess the bodies of humans and animals. The ghosts of suicides haunt the living, disturbing people and animals. Kuber lives at the height of power, but he is also the height of desire because of his accomplishment, the raising of Kundalini to gain Riddhi Siddhi. Consequently, Kuber lives in danger of falling at every moment. No doubt he is the great powerful king, the master of all power, but he is the most dangerous king alive because he could destroy the world. The Kuber who knows his danger does not use his powers. Kuber is the man who has the treasure of all powers, and since nothing is impossible for him, he is called the king of the occult, the king who has the power to do anything.
No,
Fourth heaven,
does all the people in the fourth plane are Kubers, or there's only one Kuber, just like Indra?
not clear to me. Anybody else?
There are 56 Kubers.
Oh, yeah.
56 is mentioned, 56.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Just now we read 56 Kubers.
Yes.
So there are more number of fourth people in the fourth plane, but
Yes.
there are only 56 Kubers. Is that right understanding?
Yes, there are only countable richest people in the world now. So like that, 56.
Okay.
So, is Mukesh Ambani a Kuber?
Mukesh Ambani is a Kuber.
Adani is
A
driving
bigger
him
Kuber.
away.
Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Buffett.
Just like you have 7 planes,
Yeah,
like you have
go
7 planes of evolution, excuse me, probably there are 7 different planes within the gross plane of existence where these dudes could be categorized, And I think in discourses, there is a saying, there is one part where Baba says there are 49 degrees of separation.
Yes.
So you can look at it like each plane has 7 different degrees, 7 sevens are 49. So when you look at all these so-called rich people, the unicorn people, they probably are within the material world. We can look at them in these categorization. So when we are talking about Kuber and Indra and all that, that is in the spiritual realm, where you have the subtle world and the material world with all these different planes. Jai Baba.
Yes.
Jai Baba.
Visible Kubers and invisible Kubers.
Invisible Kubers, yeah. You need to find the invisible ones. But Kubers don't have swollen eyes, don't have red eyes. What do they have? How do we find them? Anyway,
They might not be living in billion-dollar mansions, they will be outside on the road, probably.
Right. Yeah. How do we recognize them? Let's read further.
They will recognize you when it's meant to be. Because anyway, as Baba said, you don't need to deal with these planes of, with these saints and so on, because only the 5th and 6th plane saints are capable of bringing aspirants to their level. But not only we have a Sadguru, we have a supreme Sadguru called the Avatar, Chairman Emeritus. So we don't have to bother about any of those people. Even if they come into your life, we should be very careful that Baba, as he said, Mera daman mat chodna. That's it.
Yeah. That's true. He's going to take us across world. The Kuber who knows his danger does not use his powers. Kuber is the man who has the treasure of all powers, and since nothing is impossible for him, he is called the king of the occult. The king who has the power to do anything. The 4th heaven, Al-Mahfuz, the protected world, is actually in the 4th plane and has 4 parts or sections. Each section is a state of consciousness of the 4th plane, full of power and allurements. And at every step, Kadam, Kuber is tempted either by the power or by the allurement.
I was reading Vidyavati's The Joy of God Realization.
Mm-hmm.
She states that Baba said it seems that Dr. Neelu, is in between 4th and 5th plane, or 4.5 plane. I thought that's very interesting.
Very treacherous state. So she cross over to the 5th, or Dr. Neelu cross over to the 5th, whichever the reality is.
I don't remember when whether she said Dr. Neelu or herself in the 4.5 plane, but she did mention that in the book. It's very interesting. She wrote very interesting.
She says it's the same Jivatma, right? Dr. Neelu and her.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. I didn't read the books, so but
yeah, it's very interesting.
The same.
Well written book.
Yeah. Yeah, Baba. Should we stop here? We are at 8:59 in India. We can just take a pause here, discuss anything, and then read from page 88 next week.
Sounds
I
good.
think we can stop here and start from the paragraph you just read next day.
Right. Yeah. I think it's interesting. Kuber's story is very interesting.
It's all about the 4th heaven, so we can start from here.
Yeah, right.
That is on page 87. Okay.
Yep.
Very good. See you
Jai
all
Baba.
next
Jai
week.
Baba. Yes, see you all
Avatar
next
Meher
week.
Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Is there any